Hi everyone, welcome to the week 12 build book demo. A lot of really important content is in this demo that's going to be on the final practical test. Just a couple items that I'll highlight before we'll get started. So you're going to notice that we're now introducing some servers into a forest called acme.local. There's a Acme Federation server, there's an Acme web server. That web server is going to be running IIS, but it's also going to be running the Windows Identity Foundation. And the Windows Identity Foundation basically includes a sample site that we're going to use to integrate with our Federation server. So that you can download from the FOL software page. We're also going to introduce an Acme Certificate Authority as well as a domain controller. We're going to set up a Federation trust between our Fanco Federation server and our Acme Federation server. And then we're going to be able to authenticate to our web application in Acme using either or credentials. The last piece of this demo is introducing the configuration for Active Directory Rights Management Services, and like I said, we'll cover that at the end. So the configuration servers that we need, either fanco.local, those are going to be on the CAN East LAN segment. The acme.local servers are going to be on the external partner LAN segment. And obviously you need your router to be running as well. So I'm just going to flip over, got all my servers up and running here. First thing we want to do is configure the certificate authority on Fanco. So we're on Fanco CA. We need to open up certification authority, and we're going to create a clone of a certificate template that already exists. Just takes a second to load here. So what we're doing is we are going to set up so that we can enroll the certificate for our Federation server, which is Fanco FS. So I right click on certificate templates, go to manage. I'm looking for the web server template. I'm going to right click, duplicate the template, go to general. We're going to call it Fed Server. So Fed Server is the display name, Fed Server is the template name. And over on the security tab, we want to hit add. We're going to add our Fanco FS computer object. So we need to check off computer objects, Fanco FS. When it adds it to the list, you want to allow enroll and auto enroll. Click OK. Fed server now shows up in the list there. Oops. So we can close out the certificate templates. And now, once it loads, we can go to new certificate template to issue. And then once that loads, we should be able to add our Fed server template to the list there. So you'll see Fed server under certificate templates. So the next thing we want to do is go over to Fanco FS, and what we want to do is load MMC, and we're going to add in the certificates snap-in. Now it's important when you get to this screen. If you select My User Account, you're going to run into issues. It's not going to find the Fed server certificate template. You need to specify computer account, local computer, and then you'll be able to load the certificates that are specific to the local computer. So what you want to do is right-click on Personal, go to All Tasks, and you're going to request a new certificate. Click Next, and you should see that Fed server certificate show up in the list. It just takes a second to load up. So there's our Fed server. We're going to check that off. There's more information that's required, so we're going to click on that. And the certificate properties we need to specify. So the first one that we want to specify is under the subject name, we want to change that to common name. And we want to enter federation.fanco.local. We're going to add that to the list there. Hit OK. You'll now see that we're able to add it. And we want to click on Enroll. While that is enrolling, we're going to go over to our domain controller. And we want to create a CNAME DNS record for that federation.fanco.local that we just created. So we're going to open up DNS. Now you'll notice that it can't contact Fanco DC2. That's because I don't have that one online. We don't need it for this lab. So, like I said, I'm going to create a new CNAME, and it's going to be for federation.fanco.local, and that is going to point to fancofs.fanco.local. So federation.fanco.local, and then fanco-fs.fanco.local is where it's pointing to. So we'll close out of DNS there. So that's the initial configuration for Fanco. Now what we want to do is basically the exact same steps over on Acme. So again, opening up certificate authority on Acme CA. Under my certificate templates, again, it's normal that it takes a few seconds to load. I've got to go to Manage. Clone or duplicate that web server template. Call it Fed server. And again, the security tab, add a computer object. But it's Acme FS. And we want to enroll and auto enroll. Close that out. Now we can new certificate template to issue. Wait for that to load. There's our Fed server. I'm going to go back over to our Federation server, but this time it's Acme FS. Snap in, certificates, computer account, local computer, personal, all tasks, request new certificate. Wait for that to load. There's our Fed server template. Check that off. Change the common name to be federation.acme.local. Make sure we add that over here. Hit OK, and we'll hit enroll on that. While that's enrolling, we'll go over to our Acme domain controller. And again, we want to set up a CNAME record in DNS. So we'll open up DNS. CNAME Federation, and that's going to point to Acme FS, acme.local. Just jump back over here. It says that it was successful, so we can click on finish. We don't need that console open anymore. So now we have set up what we need as far as certificate authority goes on our Fanco FS server and on our Acme FS server. So we're going to go back to our Fanco FS. Click finish on that. And the next step that we want to do is actually set up and install the ADFS server role. So we need to do this both on Fanco FS and on Acme FS. So I'm going to add the role. You'll see it here, Active Directory Federation Services. Next. And install. So we'll just wait for that to install. I'm going to jump over to Acme FS. I'm going to do the exact same thing on that server. Federation Services. We'll install that there. All right, so we now see that ADFS is installed. But you'll notice that there's still configuration that's required for ADFS. So we're going to configure Federation on the Fanco FS server. Open up the wizard here. We're going to create, because this is the first server, we're going to create the first Federation server. Hit next. You'll see that it's going to use our administrator account, which is fine. The SSL certificate, we're going to use federation.fanco.local. And the Federation display name, we're going to enter as Fanco Corp. So the SSL cert is federation.fanco.local, and we're calling it Fanco Corp. Hit next. We need to specify a managed service account name. So we're going to use our administrator account. Next, we want to create a database server using the Windows internal database. Hit next. Next again, and we are ready to configure. So again, I'm going to jump over to the Acme FS server now and configure my federation server. It's going to use the Acme administrator account. I'm going to use the federation.acme.local. I'm going to call it Acme Corp. Next. Again, I'm going to use the administrator account. Again, using the same settings as before with the Windows internal database, and I'm ready to configure. Go back over to my Fanco FS server. You'll see that the server was successfully configured. Great. Hit close on that. The other piece that we have to do, I'm just going to minimize this here, is we have to run a command that basically sets the service principal name to the service account that we're using. So in order to do this, we actually have to go over to our domain controller in Fanco. And I'm just going to, again, run command prompt. And we need to do set spn -s http /federation.fanco.local, and we're using that administrator account as our service account. So you'll see that it registered the service principal name for federation.fanco.local. We also have to do the same thing for the server, so -s http /fancofs.fanco.local, and it's the administrator account as well. Jump over to Acme FS here. Just make sure that this is still progressing. While we're waiting for that to happen, again, we're going to go over the Acme DC. And set spn -as http federation.acme.local for the administrator account, and set spn http actually, sorry, this is the acme fs.acme.local for the administrator account there as well. So that worked. Let's go back over to our Acme FS server. You'll see that it was successfully configured for ADFS. So we now have our ADFS servers set up for Fanco and for Acme. We now need to go over to our Acme web server. And this is where you're going to need that Windows Identity Foundation installer, which is on the FOL page. I've already got it installed here. You're also going to need your Server 2012 R2 ISO. So I'm just going to attach that. Actually, I got to map it here. Connect the ISO because we're going to need that going through the configuration here. Okay, so I just want to make sure my ISO loaded. Great. We're going to go manage and add roles and features here. And we want to make sure that we check off under application development. We need ASP.NET 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.5. So we're going to check those two off. So we'll hit next on that. The other feature that we need is the Windows Identity Foundation 3.5. So make sure that that is checked off on the features list. We'll hit next. Now you'll notice that it pops up here saying we need an alternate source path. So we actually have to pull these files to install off of the ISO. That's why we need the ISO. So down here at the bottom, we're going to click on specify an alternate source path. And that is going to be, let's just make sure first that it's the D drive. And that's going to be sources / SXS. And now we're going to hit install. So we just have to wait a couple seconds for that to show up. Again, if you don't already have the Windows Identity Foundation's SDK 4.0, make sure that you have it downloaded from the FOL page and copied over to your Acme Web VM. So now's a good time while you're waiting, if you don't already have that, to get it. All right, that is done now. We're going to hit close. And the next thing we want to do is install that Identity Foundation SDK. So we'll just install that. And we will hit finish. All right, before we get started on the application, I just want to do a quick GP update. And the reason for that is I want to make sure that I have the updated trusted CA list, because I'm going to need the updated list when I'm configuring the application in IIS. So just make sure that as you run a GP update / force, then we're going to open up IIS to get started. Alright, so there's our Acme web server. And all I need to do is click on Acme Web, and I'm going to go to Server Certificates here in the middle pane. So what I want to do is over on the side here, the actions, create domain certificate. So I'm going to click on that. Now keep in mind, and as I sort of said in the lectures before, this would be an opportunity where you would use a public certificate, one that you've actually acquired and paid for, because it is a publicly accessible website. So you typically wouldn't create your own certificate, but for our case, we're going to. Common name, acmeweb.acme.local. I spelled it right. Organization is Acme Corp. OU is Acme. City is London, Ontario, Canada. Next on that. So we want to specify our online certificate authority. That's going to be our Acme Web. Give it a friendly name. It is just Acme Web. We'll hit finish on that. Just wait a few minutes for that certificate to be created. And there we go. So now under sites, we're going to go to our default website. We're going to edit the bindings. And what we want to do is add HTTPS, and the certificate that we want to select there is our Acme Web certificate. So remember, it's called Acme Web because that's the friendly name that we gave it when we created that certificate. So we'll hit OK on that. So we now have our port 80 set up by default, and we now have our port 443, which is our HTTPS or SSL site binding set up as well. So we'll hit close on that. Next thing we want to do, so we need to navigate to the C drive, go to Program Files x86, open up that Windows Identity Foundation SDK that we installed, version 4, under the samples, quick start, and using managed STS folder. You're going to see a setup.bat. We actually want to edit that bat, and we need to modify the version of IIS that we're using because it doesn't recognize IIS 8. So we need to change the 0x7 to be 0x8. Save that. And then we're going to run the setup.bat file. See that it runs there. Press any key to continue. And what we want to do now is from the start menu, we're going to see that there's the Windows Identity Foundation Federation utility. So open that up. This is where we're going to specify our application configuration location and our application URL as well. So we're going to specify the configuration location as that really long path that we're using here. pause there. So we need to go a little bit further. Claims aware web app with managed STS. And there's the web config that we want to specify there. The application URL we're going to enter as https acmeweb.acme.local/claims aware web app with managed STS. So we're loading our configuration, we're loading our application URI. We're going to hit next. We're going to use an existing STS, and we're going to enter that as https federation.acme.local/federation metadata/2007-06/federation metadata.xml. And you can see the path in the example down below where we got the format from. And next on that. Just wait a second for that to load. And we want to make sure that we've selected disable certificate chain validation. Hit next, no encryption, and then next. We'll keep all of our claims as to what it's offering there. Hit next, and we'll hit finish. So we've now configured our application, which is our sample WIF application. So we need to go back to our IIS manager, and we want to go to application pools, and we want to add a new application pool, and we're going to call the application pool with samples. Okay, on that we're going to go to the advanced settings, and we want to change the process model. Find it here. Process model here. And we want to go to load user profile and set that to be true. And we'll hit OK on that. Our default website here. It's not showing up. There we go. So you should see if you refresh, there's our claims aware web app with STS. And we want to specify that, go to basic settings, and we want to make sure that our application pool is that WIF samples that we created. We'll hit OK on that. All right, so now we want to go back to Acme FS. And we're going to do another GP update /force. That'll get our updated our trusted CA list. We're waiting for that to happen. We're going to open up the ADFS management console. Okay, group policies updated. This is our ADFS console. You'll see on the side here, trust relationships. And there's our claims provider trust, our relaying trusts, and our attribute store as well. So we want to specify a relaying trust party trust, sorry. We're going to add, start the wizard here, and we want to import data about the relying party published online. So we want to do our HTTPS acme web.acme.local/claims aware web app with managed STS. Next. Display name, we'll just leave it as the default. Hit next. And we'll say that we do not want to configure the multi-authentication at this time. When you get to the choose issuance authorization rules, make sure that you select permit all users. We'll hit next on that, and this is where it sort of summarizes what your trust will look like. So we're going to hit next, and we want to make sure that the open the edit claim rules when we're done is also checked. So hit close on that. See that the edit claim rules shows up, and what we want to do is click add a rule, and we want to set up using the template pass through or filter an incoming claim, hit next, and the incoming claim type is going to be your Windows account. Account name, we'll just call it pass through Windows account name. And we will hit finish on that. And then you can hit OK. So now we've set up our relaying party trust. So now what we will do is we're going to load up browser here. We'll just use our administrator account. And there we go. This is what you should see if everything was successful. Now, keep in mind when I went to the URL, it's important that you have the slash at the end. It's really just an error with the application that we're using. So again, make sure that everything shows up the way that it should when you've gone to this URL. So a lot involved. You'll see that it's pulling back our administrator account. It's setting up federation.acme.local, and all of our claim values are being returned in the way that they should. So if that's what you get, then you've configured everything that you need to correctly to get ADFS functioning. There's a lot of steps. It's going to take a little bit of time. You see where this took about 45 minutes to get set up. So you can expect that when you're doing the practical test, that you can expect at least 45 minutes to an hour to get this functional.